Alright, skip the intro, you know why you're here. The last trailer for Chapter 3 just dropped, so let's look at all 3 of the teaser videos and the 2 trailers and break them down. The plan is simple. We'll go over a summary of each video, talk about some of its most important details, talk about some hidden details that may be important for later, and add any info we gained to this nifty little corkboard showing who's connected to who. Got it? Good. Let's hop right in. This is the first and shortest of the videos. This video contains a distant audio tape of Elliot Ludwig talking about how children are what keeps the company going, and announces the opening of Playcare, their in-house orphanage. As the audio plays, we pass a toy of Huggy, Mommy, and Braun. Clapping can be heard alongside the laughter of children, which slowly turns into screams and crying as it zooms into the gas mask. This being the first teaser of Chapter 3, the first thing of note is of course that this is the first teaser to show the red mist and the gas mask, as red mist can be seen behind the mask. Speaking of the gas mask, it appears to be red and yellow, the colors of Braun, which initially made people think that the antagonist for this chapter would be him, paired with his appearance right after the Chapter 1 and 2 toys. Some hidden details you may have noticed that the mommy toy shown is separated by the abdomen, which is where the real mommy was severed by the grinder at the end of Chapter 2. Seeing as the Braun toy is missing its body, being just a bloody severed head, this could imply that we might kill Braun this upcoming chapter should he show up. You can also just barely see a few toys behind the mask, particularly Bunzo and Daisy. Daisy in particular being another character a lot of people suspected to be the main antagonist before we learned about Catnap. There is, of course, a decent chance that Daisy might show up as well in this chapter, given that the poppy seed gas is made of poppy flowers, and given Daisy is a flower herself. Well, to the corkboard! So far we have Ludwig, who opened the Playcare for the orphans. There's a chance that Daisy might show up because of their flower theme, and the poppy gas coming from the poppy flower. Though, that's just a theory. The gas mask used to defend against Catnap is Braun colored, so maybe Braun will lend a helping hand? Especially given they were paired up alongside 2 other important characters, Huggy Wuggy and Mommy Longlegs. Though neither of them were good, so maybe we'll have to kill Braun? Will we betray him? Will he betray us? I guess we'll have to find out. The second Chapter 3 trailer was nearly a year after. The trailer starts with a quick black and white frame of a gas mask before cutting away to a fire from the crashed train of Chapter 2. We cut to a hallway within Playcare, which shows that Playcare may look very house-like, much like Poppy's room did. We see a mini Huggy decapitated with claw marks etched into the ground. We can see a memoriam photo of a child, though we do not know exactly who this is yet. Though I will explain some details later that might point to 2 possible candidates. We see a drawing from a child depicting Catnap using their sleeping gas to force the children to sleep. There's another drawing a little further down, but it's too dark and blurry to properly see what's being depicted in it. We cut yet again, this time to a phone which is playing a dead tone, and yet again to a shot peeking around yet another hallway. It's too dark to see what lies beyond, however the wall says, "The original saved me. I rejoice in him." The original referencing the prototype. There's some more memoriam photos, however we can see that some of the darkness in the children's eye is not lighting, but rather darkened eye bags from being tired. Rather ironic. More etchings can be found saying, "I live to serve our angel of salvation." We also see more drawings showing various portrayals of Catnap, particularly what the children think of him. I'll talk more about this later in the hidden details section. We see more blood and claw markings, as well as a few ritualistic candles, continuing with the cult theme that we will see more prominently later on. We can hear children crying as we shoot to a Huggy Wuggy head on a pole, still dripping with blood, and then to what may be a machine or shrine made up entirely of dead toys. However, some have speculated this to be the prototype himself. More cultish etchings, some hidden by shadow, but we see things like followers of the path, my somniferous flock. Never forget the hour of joy. We can see Catnap still etching the final sentence before we pan to them in the darkness with 2 glowing eyes. A bout of red mist spurts from their mouth before we are jump scared. The red mist envelops the screen as we see the chapter's name, Deep Sleep. Going back to some important details, when we see the photo of the child, although it's hard to tell given the darkness of the photo, it appears that the child has either curly red or brown hair. If it's red hair, this might be a photo of the child assigned to the Poppy doll, theorized to be Ludwig's daughter, especially with the red flowers surrounding it. It should also be noted that the scratches are behind the photo, which would mean the photo was placed onto the wall afterwards. The other possibility is that this could be Theodore Grambel, which would explain the lack of scratches, as they wouldn't want to destroy what is likely one of the few remaining photos of themselves. As for some hidden details, in this scene where we see the decapitated mini Huggy, another stuffed animal can be seen sitting a little ways away. Coloration on the paws and feet looks similar to how the smiling critters were designed. However, they are a brown plushie, meaning it could be see a new smiling critter, perhaps an abandoned old design or prototype. Its head seems to be removed as well, but there's no visible blood, only stuffing. I thought about the possibility that this could be Dog Day or Bobby Bear Hug, and just look brown due to lighting. However, the plushie's missing the lighter patch on the stomach like the other two do, showing this is indeed a new smiling critter that was not advertised. Or at least that's what I thought, as when I made a short about it, a lot of commenters suggested that this may be a prototype of Dog Day, both literally and in-game, as they were still trying to figure out an exact design even after the cartoon, as it was apparently missing its fur. However, it could still be an older design in-universe too. In the scene where etchings mention an angel of salvation, we see 4 drawings, each showing a different thought about Catnap. One child sees him as a friend, another sees Catnap as a parental figure just like mommy and daddy before they left me, and another is more negative, saying that he gives me nightmares, but is still seemingly shown holding their hand. But lastly, in the corner most hidden, is one showing 2 black eyes crying a black substance, with a much smaller person hunched over covering their face. However, it's all drawn very scraggly, so perhaps it's something else, but that's what I got from it. Back to the drawing board. We now know that Playcare seems to be inspired by Poppy's room. Either that or the other way around, but even so, there's definitely a connection here. We know Catnap sees the prototype as their god and are revolving their cult around him. We also know that Catnap and Huggy Wuggy aren't too big of fans of one another, as Catnap has killed at least 2 Huggies in the trailer alone, the mini Huggy and the larger Huggy head on a pole. However, neither are confirmed to be our Huggy, especially given a certain scene we'll be seeing later. There's a smiling critter reject that may or may not be important. There's Catnap's cult with the orphans, who may or may not be alive at this point. Either that or there are some very mentally drained 20-year-olds down there that we're gonna find. The drawing shows a wide variety of thoughts regarding what the children think of him. The portrait we found may be of Theo before he became Catnap, or it could be Poppy before becoming, well, Poppy. Next up, I figured I'd cover the recall, seeing as it includes the entirety of the cartoon. The cartoon takes place on a stormy day where the smiling critters are waiting for the storm to pass so they can sleep. However, the storm just keeps scaring them. Suddenly, Catnap arrives, to which they all beg him to put them to sleep. He silently obliges, spewing the red mist, causing them all to enter hysterics before finally cutting to them all lifeless on the floor. Catnap sits silently in the middle of the couch before the credits roll. However, we pan out to see that this was being broadcast on the news. Apparently, the cartoon was run to specifically advertise the critters. However, Catnap in particular is apparently under controversy. Apparently, children with the toy seem to always get strange or violent nightmares, which has resulted in the Catnap toy being recalled and removed from all promotional material. The video ends with the audio becoming more clear and with children screaming in the background as the news reporter tells us, "Your children are not safe with Catnap," serving as a double meaning, both the toy with the children and the bigger body with the orphans. Some important details include the time at the start of the cartoon. The time is 10:05 and turns to 10:06. We've been told by the devs themselves that this is important, and many theorize a connection to experiment 1006, the prototype. Another thing is that apparently the scent comes out of the smiling critter's mouth when you pull on their tail. This makes me wonder about that intro where the only smiling critter to have their tail pulled was Catnap. You know, the one who puts people to sleep? Maybe I'm stretching with that, or maybe I'm not. I didn't see any other hidden details, so let's head straight to the corkboard. Not a whole lot for this one, but there is a propaganda cartoon in regards to Catnap's red sleeping gas, which has a reference to experiment 1006, the prototype. Lastly, the company had to recall the Catnap plush due to the intense nightmares the plush gave children. Onto the first game trailer, we see the beginning of that Smiling Critters cartoon from last video. However, as we pan out to a TV, it begins giving an emergency alert for a workforce danger. Have you heard the news shows? We see a house inside of Playcare, which seems to be the same blue tones as the wall in one of the earlier teasers. We also see trees, though it isn't clear if they are fake or real. Likely fake, as they couldn't have been watered this entire time. We hear Poppy whisper, "Find the flower," as we enter a dilapidated version of Home Sweet Home. We can see broken bunk beds, a green power source on the ceiling, as well as what I think is a hunched over Cappy. Another green power source can be seen over here when the player turns, and right before the camera switches we can see a Huggy head. It doesn't look to belong to an actual toy, so this may be something else like a pillow or a handbag. Next scene we get to have a good look at the new gas mask for the chapter. We can see some red mist off to the side, and when we stop to look at the gas mask, the screen gets more red, implying this might be during a timed scene where we have to get the mask before the red mist prevents us from getting to it. Poppy whispers, "Find the flower," again as we take a good look at the Smiling Critter plush models. Right before it cuts away, we can see some graffiti that shows some letters in the top left corner, but it doesn't pan out enough for us to see what it says. I was able to make out an A, D, I, and V, but that doesn't seem to mean anything. Though we don't see the top of each letter, so the A could be an H and the I could be a T or Y. But none of the ciphers I've used have come up with anything worthwhile. The most legible thing I could get was the name Svan. Comment if you find anything of note that I couldn't. There also looks to be a hanging candy cat, and next to it you can see a hanging Brawn as well. And on the right side there's a hanged Boogiebot and a hanged Bunzo. We cut to the message, "These children have suffered," and again to a poster saying Catnap is your friend. We also see this yellow toy to the side that may be a variant of Boogiebot or Boxy Boo. Hard to say though. We can hear someone, presumably Dog Day, telling us that the prototype is Catnap's god, while showing the shrine, though again, some presume this to be the prototype himself. We can see an actual human skeleton with a hard hat in the jaws of the Puckapillar. Interestingly, it looks to be plucked clean of all blood, tissue, and organs, while the bones remain relatively unscathed. Were they sucked out? We see a shadowy figure chained to a wall in the cage, who is the person who is talking. Again, presumably Dog Day. As he finishes, saying, "And this is what he does to heretics." The next scene we get more text. "These children grow hungry," as we get to see the first appearance of the purple hand, which we use to jump over to the other side of the bridge. From the looks of it, the floor is covered in the red poppy gas, which indicates that the gas is actually rather dense and can't flow freely through the room. From the looks of what's ahead, it looks like we'll have to parkour across these pipes and possibly these tubes with the way they're set up. We also see a VHS showing a distorted, more demented Huggy Wuggy. I'll talk about what Poppy is saying over all this in a bit. Next it says these children are saved, likely in reference to Catnap's cult. We also see the blue hand interacting with these odd spinning poles. On the left we can see that we are in some kind of monitor room. The next scene shows Catnap crawling by in a hallway, and now we get to see Poppy again, this time on Kissy Missy's shoulder. During this whole scene, Poppy has said, "What's happening down there is bigger than all of us. I need you, so we can get revenge on those monsters who tortured you, who've tortured us." Seeing as when she said, "those monsters who tortured you," is when Catnap went by the screen, I think Poppy isn't actually talking to us, the player, but rather to Dog Day to convince him to join our cause, especially given what little we've actually had happen to us. We've almost died a few times, sure, but we certainly weren't tortured, especially when compared to what the children down at Playcare went through. So I'm thinking that they just placed the player in front of Poppy, and that behind us, where Poppy is actually looking, is Dog Day. The hour of joy arrives is what it says next as we hear a phone ringing. Perhaps we'll get the chance to talk to a living staff member, phone guy style? We run down a flight of stairs and see the animation of her putting on the mask. Poppy can be heard yelling, "We're coming, just hold on," likely to an ally who was captured. We are chased by Dog Day through what looks to be a play area as we can see tubes and climbable walls. We jump down a hole into a wooden house which, curiously enough, has red wallpaper adorned with poppy flowers. And we end by running into a vent during a chase scene. We see a still of Catnap, and of course, Chapter 3, Deep Sleep. Something kind of important I noticed is that we hear Poppy herself whisper, "Find the flower," which seems to confirm that she was the one who sent us the letter, though how she did that while she was stuck in a case is anyone's guess. But that would also mean she wasn't the flower the letter was talking about, putting more precedence into the theory that the flower is in reference to crafty corns, not poppies. For a hidden detail, the alert at the start of the trailer shows that it was being broadcast on August 8th, 1995 at 11 p.m. If this was the hour of joy happening, then this actually occurs on the same day as the restricted relocation with Kissy Missy. And to the corkboard. We noticed a mini Brawn amongst the hanging toys. Given that Brawn is also the color of the gas masks, it makes me wonder if he's a heretic like Dog Day. Seeing as Poppy was telling us to find the flower, we know she's who likely sent the flower, but that leads to more precedent that the flower is really Crafty Corn of the Smiling Critters. Lastly, there's a good chance that Poppy was trying to convince Dog Day to our side during the scene where she mentioned those monsters who tortured you, because we were never tortured. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. Final trailer. I am literally recording this minutes after it posted. For the sake of brevity, I'll skip over moments that don't look to have anything. We start with what looks like a projector showing various images. First, the workers in Home Sweet Home with each child's face scratched out. Next are children in a lineup, though this one has clear cat scratches on their arm. Our last paper shows an experiment log for Catnap's bigger body. I didn't see anything of note aside from right at the bottom where I see missing scaffolding 3A E310L. I know this has to mean something, but all my brute forcing parsing through various ciphers has been in vain so far. Perhaps it's a mix of multiple ciphers? It seems to look similar to hash but can't be decoded as one. We see what's likely going to be our hub area for the chapter, with smiling curry decor as far as the eye can see, and we also see this area on the left labeled toys, but I'll bring that up again later. We see the school where we can confirm that yes, what we saw earlier was indeed a pillow. Very exhilarating, I know. More of note, in the corner a mommy toy looks to be crushed by a ceiling panel. Playhouse has more insane coal etchings, and then we see the manor, with a catnap chandelier and was likely where Dog Day was trapped in the previous trailer, as there's a prison door with Dog Day's symbol. It looks like we'll be getting far more in-depth VHS tapes, as we can see multiple VHS videos this trailer, though they could very likely be one and the same. We see a dark version of one of the rooms we saw earlier in trailer 1, specifically the one with 2 green power sources. The question is, did we have to use those power sources to power the room on, or did we return here after it became dark? Either way, we look to be staring directly at Bobby Bear Hug here. Is this going to be a weeping angel mechanic? If so, then that means the currently unrevealed Doctor Who inspired character likely is not a weeping angel, assuming that Bobby is. We get to see us using a finger gun weapon, though given we already have 2 grab hands attached, it seems like we will indeed get to switch between grab pack hands. The next scene we fire a flare shot to scare off Catnap, and it looks like we get 5 rechargeable shots. And next we get a board outlining all intended areas of play care. Home Sweet Home, the toy store, the school, the counselor's office, which interestingly enough says is the perfect place to help cry, and lastly the entrance, which interestingly enough has no exit. Poppy tells us that every flickering light is a hiding spot, and once you're at your most vulnerable, he'll kill you, as we get another look at VHS Guy, who does not look to be in a good place. But if we slow down the footage, you can just barely see how skeletal Catnap's frame really is. Looks like even back then he was barely eating. We get a grab pack cannon which we can use from afar to complete puzzles. As Poppy continues, play care is his church, his hunting ground. We also get a continuation of the Dog Day chase. We can tell by the same distinct wall patterns. Right after, for a few frames, we quickly pass by this poster of Daisy saying to stay energized. More confirmation that Daisy's gonna show up. On top of that, we also pass the head of blank, Nate Carpenter, as well as the head of Playhouse. Next section, we hurriedly power a race car as Poppy finishes. I know what happened here. This is your answer. Hanging on a VHS tape for the hour of joy. We see VHS Guy being chased through red gas, and then a menacing living one of these trash cans from the back. Though this also shows that the yellow robot was not in fact a variant of Boogiebot like I was hoping. Sorry, old friend. In this chase scene, we look to be hopping around with the purple hand, and next scene feels important, but I just couldn't find anything. Though the webbing in the corner does bring a certain morning Longlegs family to mind. We scare away Small Dog Day with a flare, more of Kissy Missy, more of Demented Huggy, though it looks like a cutscene by the lack of grab pack hands. Are we hallucinating, or did we lose our grab pack? We hear childlike wails as Elliot Ludwig goes on. All that await you are incomprehensible horrors, smiling mouths full of teeth and meat and plastic. This world is theirs now. With one final view of Catnap, we cut to black, and in comes our release date. At the start with the first photo, some children are already toys. You can see some unnatural purple here, which would make this head a rather irregular shape, very spoon looking. That being said, if toys and children both live here, why was there a toy shop in the hub area, as the sign later says? Though this actually could indicate toy segregation being fostered by the higher-ups so they can't help one another and rise up. By Elliot Ludwig's quote at the end, we now have confirmation that he did know about the experiments. However, he certainly doesn't seem to enjoy them. But he was the CEO, right? The founder? What's stopping him? Certainly something we'll have to theorize about. Though his last line, "this world is theirs now," could imply that Elliot abandoned Playco and left behind the experiments, which would mean that he might not actually be Experiment 1006. And so, our last corkboard of the night. VHS Guy and Catnap had a one-on-one encounter, which didn't go so well. There's a poster of Daisy and Playcare adding more precedent for her appearance this chapter. Demented Huggy might be a hallucination or nightmare of some kind, seeing as our grab packs are missing, though that does bring up the TV. If it was all in our head, how could a VHS show Demented Huggy as an image? Unless that's also part of the nightmare? Elliot Ludwig calls the experiments incomprehensible horrors, so how come he couldn't stop it? What or who who is holding him back? There's also a good point to be made that he might not actually be the prototype. Did he escape, or did the prototype come later than we thought? Lastly, the toy shop paired with the toys sleeping in Home Sweet Home makes me think that the Playtime executives might be trying to foster an environment of discrimination against living toys so that the children do not listen to them. So that's everything I could find. Every secret, possibly important detail, every last minute prediction. If you want to see a bunch of theories when the game comes out, be sure to subscribe. And I also fully intend on streaming the game when it comes out on the 30th. Not only that, but I have Unreal Unlocker, meaning I might be able to peek at some outbound secrets after too. Anywho, that's all from me. This was Spice from CutCafe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!